I wish you a very happy birthday for that. Unfortunately, I'm struggling with the latter end of COVID, so can't be with you. I was hoping to be clear yesterday, but I'm not today. I could chair the meeting remotely, but I don't think that's going to be very helpful for everyone. And I therefore took the liberty of asking for Councillor Grinsell to be briefed on the papers. And I'm there going to put it to you all that Councillor Grinsell is appointed on this occasion as chair for the meeting this morning. Okay, is the general consensus that you're all acceptable to that proposal?
Yeah.
Good. I'll therefore hand over to you, Karen. I'll participate. I don't have a vote, but I'll participate when necessary. Speak soon.
That's great. Thanks, Bob. And yeah, hopefully you're feeling better. So, board, please bear with me, and Bob, please chip in as you need to. But welcome everybody. We'll get started with today's quite packed agenda, as we always have. So, item 1 is apologies for absence. And I believe we've got a few apologies this morning. So I know of Nick Abel, Councillor Jim O'Boyle, Sue Summers and Gary Taylor. So if there's any others, we can record them now.
There's Talha Iklak from the Young Combined Authority.
Okay.
There's usually 2 of us.
Usually 2 of you. That's great. Thank you. Okay. So we've got these. We've got those. Okay. So declarations of interest. Does anybody need to declare anything at this point? No.
Chairman, it's not quite a declaration of interest, but I can't find anyone else to hang my hat on it. Could we, in future, on the agenda itself, just have the page numbers that the report refers to? It does make life a lot easier. Like when you get to, let's take further down the agenda, item 11, if we know the starting page, you can jump to it a little quicker.
It is on there on the paper version, printed. So I'm assuming it's on yours. No? I believe it should be exactly the same. No.
Oh, sorry, I should have looked to the right.
Across.
I've got for it before, obviously.
Eyes to the right.
Only to the right, you're right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Left.
Okay, so pages 1 to 8 of the minutes of the previous meeting on the 14th of February. Is everybody happy to take those as a true reflection of the meeting? Have you approved them? Thank you. Okay, first items then for consideration. Item 5 is the Metro Depot expansion.
Sorry, Chair. A couple of updates on the minutes I think we just need to advise the board of. Would that be possible? So we were asked to produce a briefing note on cost escalations brought up by Councillor Simpkins on the last occasion. I just wanted to advise the board that this is being prepared for the April board, which Ian Martin is going to deal with. And then there was the issue of Phoenix Park, discussion regarding offshore companies. And again, a briefing note is going to be prepared on that basis to bring back to future board to advise us what our policy would be in that regard. Hopefully that helps, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Is there anything to add to that, Ian?
No, both papers are in progress, so they will be here.
Okay, so we'll continue then with item 5, and that's the depot expansion business case for Crust. So Michael Anderson has that report. Michael's on the screen, so over to you, Michael. You're on mute at the moment.
My apologies. So this paper came to out of order. It came to Combined Authority board last week. It's been through investment panel, is coming to yourselves now, and at Combined Authority it was approved subject to review and approval by investment board. We brought it out of order because of the Crusts programme and trying to get this through the CA prior to the next CA board, which would have been June, and would have delayed the project further. We took to Levelling Up, made a bid to Levelling Up Fund last year for the depot expansion and for the power supply upgrade of line 1. which was unsuccessful, and this is why we're bringing this now under the crusts package, and why it's become more urgent than it had been. The request is for 37.35 million out of crusts, which would make a total budget of 43.35 million for the depot expansion project. It's essentially enabling us to double the capacity of the depot at Wednesbury. We currently have 21 trams, and we have a further 25 on order from CAF, or 21 plus 4 options on order from CAF. We have had 8 delivered so far, and the rest will be delivered next year. So we have an urgent need to start the work on the expansion of the depot. We had an original intention just to create stabling on some spare land near Eagles Lane. This proved impossible because there were huge numbers of mines and a very large sewer that could not be moved in the ground. And after investigating a lot of other options, expanding the existing depot was the most cost-effective option for us in order to create sufficient stabling. Whilst adding the stabling, we're also extending the depot building itself in order to be able to maintain the 2 different fleets within the same building efficiently. So there's a combination of the 2 elements in this project. We have almost completed REBA Stage 4, which is what we would call detailed design ready for construction. A large part of it is already complete, and the Midland Metro Alliance, our construction partners, have been working with us as early contractor involvement as the design has progressed. So we're confident that the design is very close to completion and is deliverable in the design as it is. There's always room for improvements and modifications, but effectively it's there. I'm not sure what else in detail. Probably it's easier to take questions if the room has questions on that.
Okay, thanks, Michael. And I believe there's been a 20% contingency added to the cost figures.
Correct. We've taken the designer's estimate of construction costs, and we've added 20% contingency. Whether in the Ukraine and post-Ukraine world that's enough, nobody knows. But as the paper was drawn up, that was considered to be a comfortable number on top of what is generally a conservative estimate from the design team.
Thank you. Members? Okay,
just a question on 6.2, small packages of land to be procured. I assume they're all going to be straightforward.
They should be. We've been in discussions already with the landowners for a while, and they are adjacent to pieces of land that we're buying for the Brierley Hill extension as well. So they are really small slithers in that corner where the one line meets the other, and we have a spur off into the depot. So we don't anticipate any difficulties. We've made good progress, and it's really just a question of finalising the papers now.
okay. Any other questions from the room or on screen? Can't see any hands on screen. Yeah. So,
Morning. Do you think it's viable to order more trams because we've got defection in the current fleet?
So 2 halves to that question, I suppose. The first is that the order is already placed, and as I say, the first 8 have been delivered. The design of the trams that we've ordered is a new design, a development from the previous design, and we haven't seen any of the problems that we have in the current tram, and a number of the elements are designed quite differently from the current fleet. So we obviously do not expect or hope to have the same problems on the new vehicles. And you can be assured that we're watching closely what we do as we bring them into service.
okay, I have another hand, Councillor Simpkins.
Yeah, it's on the same sort of subject. Is how long are we tied into the contracts for these trams? Because quite clearly they're deficient. We need to start to look at building our own economies within the West Midlands. We need to encourage developers of engineers, of trams and trains, so as we can be self-sustaining rather than keep having to rely on going to Spain or Italy for components or parts. This has got to be a wider strategy to develop the economy of the West Midlands. I don't see why we shouldn't be using our own potential. From the first time that the tram was done from Wolverhampton to Birmingham, all light engineering companies was all along the track, all the way through. Now, when we're procuring vehicles from outside the West Midlands, surely there should be a strategy, a wider economic strategy, where we can build our own. Shouldn't that be taken? I'm happy for us to develop that in the future moving forward, but you know, this is just not good enough. And the knock-on effect of the reputation for the Combined Authority and the MMA is shot to pieces yet again. We've got the Commonwealth Games coming. This fills people with no confidence whatsoever. The other thing is that we want to encourage patronage onto public transport for the green agenda. This does nothing for that at all. It's disappointing. And still we haven't finished the tram link to the train station in Wolverhampton. When will that be done?
I'm sure it's gone through a full procurement process, but there'll be others that will enlighten councillors. Sure.
I'm happy to answer the principal point, and we would equally be very happy to have a UK supplier. The only UK supplier at the time of the tender, I think, was Bombardier in Derby, who declined to bid for the project. We had two bids, I think, at the time. One was from Alstom and one from CAF. And the Alstom bid was not compliant and more expensive, I think, than the CAF bid. So it went through a full tender process with both technical and price being key evaluations. But there are not that many manufacturers around the world of trams. And as we can see from some of the problems we've faced on the CAF tram, they're not quite so simple to manufacture as you might imagine. In terms of managing CAF, CAF is doing the repair work that needs to be done. It's a very difficult process, and we are working hard with them to accelerate that as best as possible. And I share totally your frustration with the problems that we have on the current fleet. Just quickly on Wolverhampton, we hope to get that completed this summer. There have been some issues in the interfaces with Network Rail, but we are resolving those, and hopefully that we'll be open before the games.
Okay, Ian, let's come in.
Yeah, just coming back to Councillor Simpkins and some an investment that we have made through this board, which is a very light rail, which is the collaboration between Dudley and Coventry, which I think hopefully goes some way to address some of the concerns here about making an investment that the Combined Authority made in terms of developing our own transport system. Obviously, these things take some time, but I thought that would be a very welcome move. We've got £12.2 million in research and development for that.
Chairman, can't see you up there.
Councillor Bird.
Well, the purpose of the report, of course, is to agree the funding for the stabling, which I'll put that to one side and say, yes, I'm in favour of that. But I have to come back with steam on this. I understand that the new trams have been modified so that the fault that is there, on inherent fault on the older ones, has been designed out. I had this conversation before that if that's the case, there seems to be a liability there from the manufacturing process, and I know that's in train to try and address that. I also, from a finance point of view, asked could we make sure that we have money held back, if that's the word, without paying them for the order we've got at the moment until this is resolved. And I do believe, and I've said this in Walsall, the Walsall pound should stay in Walsall, as in the West Midlands. We spent millions of pounds over the pandemic keeping people in business. Why should we now pass our orders over to other suppliers? I hear what you say, there aren't many people making trams. I think what we should be doing is looking at other areas that run trams, like Manchester, and saying, have you had any problem with your trams? If not, will they fit on our rails? You know, I'm not as an objective observer, because we don't have trams in Walsall, we still got horse and cart. But at the end of the day, you know, I do believe that we ought to be looking closer at the problem. And the problem is not to order more trams from the same people, but to use that as a weapon, if that's the word, to actually say to these people, we are not happy with what we've got to date. And as a result, I think we ought to look at other rolling stock that will fit on the rails that we've got. I've had this conversation with Ian Ward, and apparently they said that the track, they blamed the track, and that's why it was being ripped up by Balfour Beatty. It seems to me that it's everybody's fault except ours, you know, and as a result, we need to get to the bottom of this as members. And I think this needs some further investigation. We're not talking about, you know, a couple of quid here. We're talking about many millions of pounds. Yeah. And to be fair, that's our taxpayers' money. And as a result, I don't know whether they're French, German, Italian or whatever, but what I do know is this: it isn't our fault. We didn't design the damn tram.
Thank you, Councillor Bird. Councillor Simpkins just wants to come in.
Yeah, this is investment board, and surely we should be investing in our companies and businesses across the West Midlands. Let's create an environment where we can build trams and can build track. I think there should be a strategy for us to do that with regards to encouraging businesses to solve our problems locally, you know, and let's see what we can come up with a strategy where we invest or encourage businesses to look at the big prize, which would be to develop our tram system. I think that's right and proper for us to do. I'm happy for it to come to board so we can discuss that. I think it needs to.
It may not be this board, but it may not.
No, not this board, but the main board.
That's correct. It may not be for this board. No. We're here for the investment. So
yeah.
Can I bring in Councillor Tony, please?
Thanks, Chair. Just for a point of information, the VLR demonstrator was actually built in Stratford District.
Yeah. So there are opportunities for local businesses to get involved in this, but it's not for this board to determine. So, Councillor Chatfield.
Thank you. You'll probably groan a bit, Chair. I hate to join the pile-on, but I do. Aside from the report in front of us, which I think obviously has its merits and I think should be supported, I have significant concerns about the reputational damage that this issue is causing to Birmingham and to the West Midlands. And I think, quite frankly, those who have been responsible for both this, the issue with the trams and the issue with the tracks and the delays around the works the Metro is building them, should hang their heads in shame. And I think we need a serious investigation into how these issues have arisen, and steps should be taken, obviously, to ensure they don't happen again. Because I worry that this is in the local news today, it'll be in the national news tomorrow. And I said I've already received messages from friends and family who are significantly disgruntled about the poor service they've received over the last 12 months. And I think it's incumbent on everyone who works in this organisation to sort it out, quite frankly.
Thank you, members. Thank you for all the comments.
Can I, sorry to be a pain, but nothing new there, is that following on what Tristan said and following on what Stephen said, I think we need a resolution from this committee to the main board to say, in the private session, we need to know chapter and verse exactly what's going on, because Tristan's right, the reputational damage is something that is immeasurable at the moment. And taking on Steve's point, we need to give a direction from the board that we need a strategy to look closer to home. And I think that needs a resolution from it, because at the end of the day, we are the people that recommend the investment. Okay, it goes to main board for approval, but at the end of the day, I don't think we should be overruled by the board if we're not comfortable with the investment that we're making. So I just need a simple resolution. I'm happy to move that we express our concern from the investment board of the ongoing problems with the Metro system, and ask the officers of the Combined Authority to look at a strategy going forward of looking to place our money in the locality in the West Midlands or in the UK, and rectify the issues of reputational damage that we've now seen.
Happy to second that.
Right, we've got a resolution then to take away from this board for them to look at. But in the main, we're happy with what we're asked to agree to here on page 9, 1 to 5, as written. We're approving that. Obviously, everybody knows that it already has been to WMCA board, but then there is a further resolution to investigate the points that have just been suggested.
Agreed.
Does everybody agree with that?
Okay.
Okay. So we're on to item 6 then, which again, this has already been to board. And it's the power supply business case for crusts. So back to Michael for this one as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is linked to the other one, but not directly. We are asking for 12.6 million of crusts funding towards the development of the power supply. When the original line was built, 4 substations were omitted from the original design to save costs at the time, about 20 years ago. We've managed to keep the system going with the reduced capacity that we had, but when the extensions open, there will be insufficient power supply along the route. And we have a lot of equipment in the existing substations that is more than 20 years old and is obsolete. So we have a program to upgrade all of the existing substations and to add in at least 2, probably 3 new substations within the existing line in order to support the increased capacity of vehicles, because the extensions, the vehicles will run down the core of line 1, existing line as well. So this is a program that we've had building for a little while now, to upgrade the existing power supply on line 1 and to give us a sustainable system that is less likely to go down with the increased capacity on the line.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Questions from the room? Councillor Chatfield.
Thank you, Karen. Just on this one. So in terms of the extensions that are in train now, so the one up to 5 Ways and
Yep.
The Wolverhampton one, is there sufficient power supply in the network to sustain those extensions, or does the pressure come from the east side extension?
The pressure comes immediately, so it comes from extending to Edgbaston and to Wolverhampton. We are already in advance of this paper upgrading substation 2 because that one was more urgent than any of the others, and we have a proposal with the Alliance to add substation 4 already. So that work has already started, and we need to upgrade the other substations now. We can't wait until after Brierley Hill is open before we add these other pieces of equipment. So they need to be in there from immediately after the Edge and Wolverhampton lines are open.
Okay, Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Jefferson next.
Thank you. Just looking at the first paragraph in 3, it says, following a series of reviews, the scope has been rationalised. Will that rationalised scope address the specific issues outlined in 2.2, 2.3 and 2.4?
So yes, the work we did, we had an initial piece of work done by external consultants, which resulted in a much larger scope of power supply upgrades, and it was in an ideal world, and it was also assuming the East Birmingham Solihull project was already in delivery. So we've been rationalising, taking out what we don't need because we haven't got East Birmingham Solihull as a project yet, and making sure that we haven't added in equipment that is more than we require, as funds are tight and we can't afford to add more substations than we absolutely need. So that work has been to rationalise and reduce the scope to what is practical and achievable. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope so.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
He's happy. Okay, Councillor Simpkins.
Yeah, I just want to ask about future programme. Is there sufficient resources and finances in place for upgrades? Noting that you said at the beginning of your presentation that some of the equipment is 20 years old. Is there enough programmed in for resources for ongoing improvements so we don't have to keep coming back to this? Because I think we should have a strategy of how we renew, especially moving into the field of the green technologies and the delivery of different energy sources. So we need like a wider programme of what's expected and future planning.
We have developed recently a longer programme through the life expectancy of the equipment in terms of repair and renewal, something that was not done sufficiently well previously before the Combined Authority brought the operations in-house. So I think to answer the question, yes, we have a greater degree, but there is always the opportunity to look at new technology as we progress and see whether there is a replacement programme that will bring additional benefits by replacing equipment maybe 10, 15 years down the road. But included in our forward plan is a maintenance and upgrade program for the 20-year life expectancy of the equipment.
Anybody else? Yeah.
So in regards to this, this is mainly about power supply. The previous motion was regarding the depot expansion that's been approved. So in regards to power supply, does this include the big problem that we're going to have in the east side, which is the battery supply? I know it'll be able to last, but does it include it in your budget now? The battery part?
Yeah, so not in these papers, clearly. We have a program of accrual for the battery replacement on the older generation of trams where the battery was added later, and we have a contract with the manufacturer for maintenance and replacement of the batteries through the life. So, for example, on the new trams, the batteries are currently expected to last 10 years. So we would need to do 2 battery replacements in the life of the vehicles. The older generation trams, the battery life was expected to be 7 years. And we are optimistic that as battery technology develops, the life of the batteries that we currently have running 10 will probably run 12 to 15 years by the time we next replace them. So yeah, there's a program going forward and an anticipation of the costs of battery replacement.
Okay. So I think we've taken all the questions. So is everybody happy then to accept and approve the 1 to 5 on page 15?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we're now moving on to, so thank you, Michael.
Thank you. I will leave then. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Business items for noting now, items 7 to 10. So the first item, investment programme update and dashboard. Ian, do you want to give us the updates you would share?
Thank you, Chair. Sure. The funding commitment as at 28th of February this year was £858.5 million, and no change there versus the funding available confirmed income streams of £871 million. That excludes earmark contributions approved by WMCA board. At March 2021, WMCA board has agreed to increase that affordable limit, so that's why we have 871 million following the review of future interest rates. Since the last board, WMCA officers have approved 1 change request under delegated authority, and that extended the funding availability date for the Southern Coalfield Gateway project. It has no financial implications. The costs incurred or drawings to 31st of April was £406 million. That's a slight increase of £9 million on the December date. Investment Board have been previously advised the funds to be devolved into the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, otherwise known as CRUS. Funds are to be for an approved list of transport projects agreed by Met Leaders and WMCA Board. WMCA Board is, well, I've written here, is expected to approve CRUS at its meeting. It did approve CRUS at the meeting on Friday. And subject to final confirmation from DFT, those funds will be available. Now, it's the intention that the CRUS projects are brought to this investment board as investment programme projects have been to date. This will mean that the investment board will make decisions on investments between 5 million and 20 million, and recommendations to the WMCA board that that investment is over 20 million. It just follows what we do currently under the investment programme. And finally, additionally, following the recent Levelling Up white paper produced by government, the WMCA intend to review any such options within the proposals which may allow for those schemes beyond the affordable limit taken forward on the investment programme. I'll continue the dashboard when you're ready, Chair.
Yeah. Any questions for Ian at this point? Councillor Simpkins?
Yeah, like I mentioned on Friday at the board when this come, there's a real problem with delay of government funding. So what's the interim process when we're moving forward, especially on the transport issue? You know how bad that the transport infrastructure is, and it needs to be maintained. But we need to make sure that we get longer settlements, not just one. If there's an interim, what's the cost for us?
Answer that one. Do you want to try and answer that one?
I appreciate absolutely the point, and you made it very well that the WMCA board, it is appropriate, I believe, for that board to be looking at that and taking it forward. So it's a place to hear, but I absolutely get what you're saying.
So those investments up from this board.
I think we all accept that we'd all like long-term funding. So we are where we are right now, so we wait. So do you want to move on, Ian?
Can I just comment? Sorry, Chair, I did put my hand up. I think the important point to be made is that the CRSTS projects and the funding, when it becomes available, does come through to this investment board under single assurance framework. So I think from the perspective of governance, it's quite clear that this investment board takes a principal role in that regard. I would also add just a point which was made, I think, at the board, that there is £788 million worth of new money for investments following the CRSTS settlement. And yes, I mean, Councillor Simpkins right, these things do take time, but quite clearly we are in the process of now being able to deliver that £788 million, which would actually one-off governments. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Bob. Ian?
Yes, so with regard to the dashboard, which moves pages 33 to 39, we have 80 projects recorded as having approved funding. Within those various sub-projects, as previously said, as these business cases evolve, we'll split those projects out for clarity. We have 13 schemes currently red status. They're red for completion dates only. We believe that they are going to run beyond the approved dates, and those projects subject to change requests, or we've requested change requests, can run through individual projects if the wishes.
Has anybody got any particular questions?
Do you know last year the housing redevelopment aspect of the Peribor was, as you can see, cancelled or tweaked? Has that been reflected in these figures in the Commonwealth Games?
Are you referring to the funding for the athletes village that that's now that was done through the Brownfield Land and Property Development Fund. The aspirations there were to create housing as opposed to athletes village. So that funding has now gone out, and that's being delivered with the accountable body for that being Birmingham City Council. So the project is kind of well underway, and they met their criteria. So was that answering the question?
Partially. Yeah, it's.
I'm happy to carry on.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to highlight, Ian, at this point? Or
nothing to highlight.
Nothing major.
We're dealing with representative accountable bodies on each change request.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, so if everybody's happy, we will move on to dashboard A, which is the CIF. And so it's Nick Oakley. Can you update the board, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So items 8, 9 and 10 are the public information dashboards produced by WMDC. They are for noting. I will provide a full update under private session.
Thank you. So if everybody's happy with that then, we will move to the point in the meeting where we now exclude the press and public. So that is in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. The press and public be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following items of business, as they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information relating to the business affairs of any particular person. So we're